Let's get it.
Parry Talks, welcome back. Sorry for doubling outfits. I did 2 in one day, so don't give me shit for that. You don't have to speak too closer to it. It's pretty chill.
All right. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, got the GOAT 24karatkev on. I hate using this word, but Sydney's Oz hip hop influencer. It's such a shit word to use, but if you take everything good about what an influencer is and actually put good inklings behind it.
It's a bit of a dirty word, but I'll take it. I get free shit sometimes. That's all right. Yeah, I guess I'm an influencer. Yeah,
free steez. That's what it is.
That's it. We don't do this for any other reason than free shit. So
yeah. Fuck financial benefit. We need free teas.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
3 pillars: manager 111, editor Filterzine, presenter on MTV, a freelance writer as well.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the 3 main things that I'm doing right now. Yeah. That's probably correct.
That's probably, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
How do you, obviously, especially on our side of the music industry, people dip their toes everywhere.
Yeah.
How do you manage 3 projects like that, time-wise or effort-wise as well?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's kind of like, you know, especially when you're not working a standard 9 to 5, it's like some days you'll be working 12 hours, and then some days you work 0 hours, and then like when we were on tour in the UK and Europe, I was working 24/7 for 3 weeks. So it's just like it's really hard. There's no 9 to 5. There's no set time that you're supposed to be spending on this. It just depends on how much you love it and how much is going on in each of those projects at any given time. The MTV stuff, I usually do it I'm on camera for 20 minutes once a week, and that's pretty sweet. But always throughout the week, people are sending me clips, and I'm always looking for new music, and it kind of blurs the line between kind of just fun and business, you know what I mean? Especially in music, if you love it, it's kind of like, before I worked in music, I would spend hours just on YouTube looking at videos, you know what I mean? Exactly. And now I do that, and that's kind of work.
Yeah.
And then you'll go to a gig, or you go to a club night, and then you're just drinking and having fun, but that's also kind of like networking. So it's really hard to gauge what is actually work and what is actually fun.
Yeah.
But there's no set thing. But after we came back from Europe, because our tour was so hectic with 111, I found myself even now having maybe 1 or 1.5 days where I'm just not doing anything, and you kind of freak out because you never know how much you're supposed to be doing, and at my age, a lot of my mates are getting married, they're having kids and shit like that, and then it's kind of you can't help but compare yourself, but you just got to realize that they're on a different
path.
Yeah, they're on a different life route to you, and there's no correct or wrong way to live life. It's just that especially in music and stuff, it's some things take a bit longer, and you probably can't really settle down with someone as easily as someone who has a 9 to 5. But yeah, no, it's all it comes in peaks and troughs.
Peaks and troughs.
Yeah, some days, some months you'll be working non-stop, and some months you have a bit of time off, and then when you have a bit of time off, you start freaking out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just about learning to kind of pace yourself and kind of know when to rest, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I've mainly struggled with is when you conflate your passion with the job. When it gets a lot and when it gets too much, you sort of lose way into it.
Exactly.
That's what I felt as well.
Yeah.
That's my main thing.
That's happened to me a lot.
Yeah. How do you manage motivation levels, especially in when you are in that rut of a period where it's this is fucking just too much?
I think you just always know. For example, I used to work a full-time journalism job, and just keeping up with the news cycle was just so arduous for me. It was kind of I felt like we were competing with all these huge news outlets, and everyone was posting the same stuff, and everyone wanted to get on stuff first, and rah, rah, rah. And it just kind of got so tiring pumping out 6 articles a day, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of after doing it for 5 or 6 years, you kind of it just kind of weathers you. So now with Filter, what we've done is we've kind of pulled out of that race. We're not really saying we want to do news. We don't do news at all.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? We do kind of 3 or 4 pieces a week, and every piece is someone that we love, and we really put thought and effort into imagery and aesthetic, and then storytelling, and really formulating a more standalone piece, because I think that in the long run is probably going to be better than just doing news and news and news and news. That works for some outlets Complex and stuff like that.
Music feeds as well.
Music feeds, that's their news is their crux.
Yeah.
But someone coming up, it's going to be very hard for them to compete with a Complex or a music feeds, so what we've done is we've really emphasized the fact that we're trying to break new acts. We're trying to find acts that people don't know about, and we're really trying to tell their story like eloquently instead of just kind of churning stuff out.
Yeah.
So I find that like a lot more motivating. You know what I mean? Like just kind of just being in that race of news and clickbait and bullshit is just like, yeah, it's not good for your soul if you really do love storytelling and stuff like that. Yeah, but it works for some people, so not for me really.
Right, let's just, because we're on Filter now. What is Filter? Like, what's your role there? What is going on?
Yeah. Excuse me. So Filter, we just started in February of this year. I guess, yeah, I quit my old job, and then it was just kind of like, we had so many friends, and I had myself and Chris Lutfi, who's my partner. We had so many friends who were doing amazing things and music projects, art projects, photography projects, just like everything, but they really had nowhere to kind of promote their work. And we saw that as a massive problem, especially as we're not really exclusively hip hop, but I guess we're mainly hip hop. Especially as hip hop was blowing up, you know, you can probably count on one hand the amount of outlets, media outlets in Australia that are going to cover hip hop properly. And you know, half of them don't really do like long form stuff really. They're just more just like, they focus on American stuff or whatever, which again, there's no problem with that, but we just like wanted somewhere where our friends could like promote their work. You know, you obviously have Purple Sneakers and Parry Talks, who are two really good ones who do really take the time to, you know, really foster really like engaging pieces and stuff like that. Shout out to Hayden from
Davies,
yeah, Hayden from Parry Talks. He's crazy with it, you know, and you know, Purple Sneakers too, that they've been long supporters of the local scene and stuff like that. And I guess we just wanted to kind of like do that as well, but maybe just find a big aim of our project was to kind of find acts that people hadn't heard about before. So, you know, our first piece was on 1-4, and that was the first ever interview that 1-4 ever did, you know. So, and at that point, they weren't really as big as they are now, you know what I mean? They were just filming the video for Shanks and Shivs, you know, and obviously, like, the message was the one that blew them up internationally. But back then when Shanks and Shivs was out, you know, they were still getting, like, you know, a lot of plays, you know, like they weren't small, but like, you know what I mean? They definitely weren't what they are now. So we had to go to, you know, we were kind of like pulling strings here and there to try and get them an interview because they never done one before, and they obviously aren't like, you know, media trained or anything. No. But, you know, we went out there, you know, we took some photos, we had a chat, and, you know, we fostered a relationship from there. So, you know, yeah, like a big goal for Filter was to kind of like, to discover new acts, and also to kind of build a kind of community where, you know, like emerging artists can really like trust that their story is going to be told, and we aren't going to be pulling any funny shit on them. You know what I mean? Like, we're just here to be a vehicle for their story, essentially. Yeah.
And like even us at Purple Sneakers or Parry Talks, we're still struggling to find a direct niche in terms of storytelling and stuff, because writing long form shit is hard, and it's and not every contributor or sub editor at these blogs want to go out to an artist, sit down for them for 2.5 hours, have an actual conversation with them. So there's still definitely that gap in the market, even though that there are these sick blogs that are trying.
Yeah, I mean, for a while, I feel like it just got so heavily into clickbait and like just stupid shit like that, and like listicles and stuff, which I've done heaps of, you know, like, no hate on listicles, but I feel like it got so deep into clickbait for a while that like people kind of got sick of it, and they want to go back to, you know, actual pieces and stuff like that. If you look at that site, I don't know how to pronounce, like the Laneway, you know, LM. Yeah, so they were kind of one who you know, very much championed that. They were like, you know, we were rejecting this kind of clickbait shit, and we're going to go back to long form kind of storytelling and stuff like that, which is mad, you know, so shout out to them as well. But wait, what was the question again? About the sub. Yeah. I mean, it's just a very timely thing. Yeah. Which I guess is why a lot of outlets are going towards, you know, video content. You know, video content is it still takes ages to edit and stuff, but, you know, audiences nowadays, now I'm starting to sound old, but like audiences now, like, they're finding it a lot harder to read, like, you know, like
2,000 word articles.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wrote a 2,000 word, not even 2,500 word essay on Devil in Your New Dress by Kanye West, you know, but like, that's like, you know, a lot of people are just going to be like, what? Like, no, I'm not going to read that. But like, you know, they'll much rather sit through like a 15-minute video, like, because it takes less like concentration and stuff, I guess. So, that's something that we're super conscious of at Filter as well. You know, like we're trying to do more video, and you know, Chris is, you know, a photographer by trade. So it's very much about tying, you know, words and imagery and video together. Like that is another like kind of like big focus for us.
Yeah. Long form is just so... Yeah, you're right, because I feel like journalists get in their head in terms of, are we writing for the fans of the artist or are we writing for other journalists? And I feel like I get in that trap as well sometimes. Of like, I'm going to write this epic, like, even the piece I did for 111, it was like, am I writing this for their fans? Because in that format, it's obviously not the easiest thing to read and sit down and consume. So I feel like that journalism bubble is sort of... Especially how cliquey journalism is in Sydney as well.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't really have that problem because I don't really like any other journalists. Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to be honest. Like, I didn't do journalism at uni. Like, you know, like I started journalism because I hated my uni degree, and then I just somehow landed a job in that. But yeah, like the amount of journalists who actually take the time to do stuff and speak on hip hop properly is like very small, which is why I... Not that I'm being like pretentious or anything. I just... don't have any that many other friends that are journalists. You know what I mean? Like, and I just feel like, especially since hip hop's blown up, like a lot of them are actually fucking detrimental to like what's happening right now, because a lot of them are trying to split up like scenes and cause divides. Like, I see a lot of journalists who are reporting on hip hop. They're talking about, you know, the new wave of Australian hip hop, you know, Manu Crooks, Kwame, like rah rah rah, who are both fucking great artists, mind you, but they're putting them now against hip hop artists from the past. So they're like, they're like, yeah, you know, like Manu Crooks and Kwame are so exciting, which they are. Yeah. Oh, but like, you know, they're the complete opposite of like Hilltop Hoods and fucking Bliss and Nessa. And it's like, why even cause that divide? Like, why even cause that generational divide? Why? Because you're thinking in cliques. You're not thinking in actually telling someone's story or helping them. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's always easier to get headlines through negativity than positivity. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, I don't want to sound like a positive preacher fucking whatever, but it's like, why even do that? You know what I mean? Like, if you can't sit back and look at what Hilltop Hoods have done, they're not everyone's cup of tea. And like nowadays, you know, someone who listens to Minor Crooks might not appreciate what Hilltop Hoods have done. But if you look at what they've done, then you'll know what they've done.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, you know, from Golden Era Records to, you know, bringing up Sky High and TK Maidza on stage and in their videos and stuff like that, the amount they've done to like foster what's happening now, if you don't know that, then you shouldn't be speaking on that stuff.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it just really shits me when people try and talk about hip hop, but especially when they're talking slanderously towards something that they have no idea about.
Exactly.
That's what kind of pisses me off. And that's kind of why, like, I don't have that many friends that are like, and I've never really considered myself a full journalist. You know what I mean? Like, I've done a few pieces which could have, you know, like in The Guardian or whatever, but for most part, I'm just here to like tell someone else's story. I don't want to fucking get in there and you know, try and cause drama or whatever. Like, it's literally just about like supporting someone else's vision and supporting someone else's career. That's all. That's what a journalist is to me. To obviously not for some other people or whatever.
Just tell a story. And I hate, like, it's never ever any of the younger artists that are saying, "Oh, fuck the old generation of it." Like, it's never the artist. Yeah. It's always the conclusion of a listen piece for a new echo. That's like, oh, it's nice to see a changing guard.
Yeah,
it's like that tone is so off.
Like I get it. Like, there is definitely, you know, a new wave happening now. I get it. You know what I mean? And there's definitely more, you know, coloured artists coming up now, and not that there wasn't before, because, you know, Howe and Briggs and stuff like that have been around forever, but there's definitely more, you know, it's definitely more racially diverse, I would say, and the sounds that are coming out now are definitely more global. Compared to what was happening before. But I mean, those things have always been there. It's now that they're being pushed to the forefront for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but those sounds are now coming to the forefront. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's correct to say, like, you know, all that shit before, you know, 2015 was whack. And it's just like, no. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, still some of my favorite Australian records, hip hop records, a lot of them have come out in the past few years. You know what I mean? Like, but a lot of them were from before. Like, you know, like me and the 111 boys, we all grew up on, you know, like Elephant Track stuff. So like, it was a horror show, and, you know, The Herd, and then obviously later Elephant Tracks, you know, they signed Sky High and they signed BYs. So I don't know, like I can see why they're doing it, but I don't agree with why they're doing it. And there definitely is a new wave, but I don't think the new wave should be defined by how much you hate the old wave.
How different they are.
Yeah, how different you are from the old wave. Because it's like, you know, someone like Shadow, he's definitely, you know, probably one of the best MCs coming up right now. Like, he's been around for a while, but, you know, he's probably one of like the people that you would consider like the new wave of generation. And he signed a Golden Era Records. Yeah. You know what I mean? So is Jeswa. So you know what I mean? It's like, there's no reason why generations and sounds and different types of artists can't blend together. And I guess that's something that 111 are really, really good at as well. You know, when we look at people we collaborate with and people we put on shows, we don't look at it being like, oh no, like, you know, our audience might not get this, and you know, we just put on whoever we like. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like one day we'll do a song with Raj Mahal, who's definitely like a new sounding artist. You know, he's like crazy demonic trap production, and he's definitely new gen. And then the same show, same tour, we'll bring out Smash Brothers, you know, on stage, and they're gonna do, you know, they've been doing grime for over fucking 10 years in Australia. So there's no generational thing. Like, there's no generational divide. Whatever journalists are fucking pushing this divide, you know, just stop. It's stupid. You know, like everything that we do is about, you know, connecting, building the scene, and that. We don't need like any of that bullshit.
And think about infrastructure as well. Without Hilltop Hood selling out arena tours, there's no room for an underground rap culture in Sydney without it being like, in terms of like representation on the record labels, and like people understand that culture doesn't happen overnight. You need these groundbreaking artists to break through.
Exactly. Hilltop Hoods, you know, they're doing, you know, 15 to 20,000 still, which is crazy to me. Like, that's like kudos to them, because that's like, you know, they've been around for so long and they're still doing arenas here. How big of an opportunity is that for someone like Shadow to get up there? Not only to play, but, you know, to be on the posters, and, you know, he's going to be exposed to such a bigger fan base. You know, he earned his stripes as a grime artist, but now that he's stepping on tour with the Hoods, it's like a lot more people are going to be exposed, you know, because Hoods especially is an act that, you know, they don't have a fan base strictly in hip hop. They have a huge fan base of people that are into everything. You know what I mean? So for them to be putting on someone like Shadow is a huge move. And, you know, if you're still sitting there saying, you know, fuck Hilltop Hoods, you know, they're like old school whack Aussie hip hop, it's like, shut up. Like, you know what I mean? They're putting on, you know, they're giving Shadow a really fucking amazing opportunity right now. And I haven't been to the shows, but I trust that Shadow's going to smash it, because he smashes every live show he does. So yeah.
Just spinning negative shit is just the word, like, because no artist is ever going to talk shit about the generational stuff, or even like consider it. Anyway, like, everyone shows love, even like the chilling it with Freedom said, like, he's put it out in his market, like, Hilltop vibes on this one, big shout outs, and like, that's sick. And small shit like that as well is gonna is awesome.
And props to Chillin' It for like doing that video, because the video was crazy. But yeah, and, you know, like, I met Chill a couple of times, and we've hung out on tour or whatever, and it's like him as well. Like, his whole intake of music is very diverse. You know, he does like acoustic songs. You know, he does trap tracks. He does whatever. So like, I don't see why he should have to like stick to one sound or anything. You know what I mean? Like, he I guess he would get lumped into that, you know, underground movement because he was on Hustle Hard and because he was on Body Bag and stuff like that. You know, there's no reason why he can't go out and do a track that sounds like that. You know what I mean? It might alienate some of his fan base, but like, at the end of the day, if that's what he likes and that's what he wants to make, then so be it. Same with 111, you know, like, last single was Bad Boy, and that was like fucking, I don't even know what that was. It was just stupid. And then like Butter was a pop single, and then, you know, I almost feel like, especially with 111, we have like almost like two careers. We have like, you know, the one that kind of got us to where we are now, which was definitely kind of more like underground. It was a lot more moody, atmospheric, and I guess darker, for lack of a better word. And then we have songs that are on Triple J. You know what I mean? Like, you just make whatever you want. Like,
exactly. And people,
you don't have to stick to one sound. You don't have to stick to one like generation or one clique or one movement. You know, like, that's it. Like, everyone's obviously got their own inner circle or whatever. But, you know, like, you know, No One Network, for example, in Brisbane, we work with them, and then Bodega Collective, we work with them, and then, you know, like Smash Brothers. So whatever, it's just like whoever you vibe with on a personal and musical level, you just work with. It's like, who cares? Like,
it's good. Just be honest. People don't like push that message so much on here, but being true and being honest is so important, especially traveling through a creative industry where there's so much fickle shit, and you can see straight through it. And longevity comes in honesty. So if you're doing something, whether you're a journalist or an artist, if you're able to be honest in whatever you're putting out, then that's where the longevity is going to be. I saw like a Forte, so shout out to Forte. He was one of the first Australian rappers I met. He's a Mac Hunt, and he has his own interview series called Fortnightly Report as well. He was doing one of those Ask Me Anything things on Instagram, and someone asked him,
do you think there's less than 5 real rappers in Australia? And he replied and said something, I'm not exactly quoting obviously, but like he said something along the lines of, if you're a real rapper, you're being real to your truth. So being real doesn't mean being a street guy who's been to jail and who's done crimes. That might be real for some rappers, but if you're a nerd or you're just like a regular guy and you portray that and that's what you communicate, then you're also being real. Exactly, you are, being real doesn't mean you're the hardest cunt. Being real just means you're real to to what your truth is. Like I'm just a regular guy. I'm not going to go out there and be like, oh, I've done this and done that, because I haven't. I'm just a regular dude who loves music. You know what I mean?
And you're giving back.
Yeah, so being real, especially in the rap scene, I feel like people might do things to kind of portray themselves in a certain way but being real is just making the music that you want to make, and doing the things that you want to do. It doesn't necessarily mean exactly one. No one can define that for you. Yeah.
And like I spoke about it just before as well. It's like hip hop is like a mutual connection over a struggle. And like whatever that struggle is, it's always going to come from a place of honesty, and that's why hip hop is so empowering and so strong in that sense, because of that.
I mean hip hop was always born from struggle, but I guess it's grown to such a big place where there's room for all different types of hip hop. Like for example, like 111 is, I consider, well, they're not exclusively hip hop, but they discuss things like, obviously struggles with mental health or substance abuse and stuff like that. Whereas, like Nookie or Kobe D, they're talking about the struggles of Indigenous Australia and societal and political things like that. So, it's different for everyone. Everyone's definition of that is different, and there's room for all of it. So,
fuck, we just went. I was trying to keep it as linear as possible, but fuck it. So, 111, obviously managing 111.
Yeah.
You never managed anyone before that?
No.
So how did you link with them, and how did you meet them and think, if I'm going to manage someone, it's these boys? Or like to take that leap, because it's obviously not the easiest leap to do.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago now, it must have been 3 or so years ago. I was at One Day Sundays. So like for anyone who doesn't know, One Day Sundays, I guess, was the pivotal hip hop party in Sydney for a long time, for a couple of years. I think it was the first or the last Sunday of every month. It's just a great party. I mean, they don't have them in Sydney anymore because fucking it's so hard to throw any party in Sydney, but they have them in Perth, and I went to one in Melbourne not that long ago and stuff like that. So I guess that was a really important party for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, it was just like a good time. Second of all, I feel like one day when one of the crews really pushing that bridge between, Aussie hip hop, quotation marks, and club hip hop. You know what I mean? Like I feel like those audiences were quite separate for a long time, and then you would go to One Day Sundays and you'd hear Hermitude back to back with Future, back to back with Joyride, back to back with Gucci Mane. So they were really pushing the fact that it's just, if it's good music, it's good music. There's no, again, the borders thing. There's no geographical borders to this shit. If it's good music, it's good music. So that was really important. And the third reason I think it was really important was because it was a really good place to meet people. So I met like a lot of my friends at One Day Sundays. One of the first things I did was, because I met in journalism, like in hip hop locally as well, was with Jackie and Assis and Joyride. So shout out to them, because they've been kind of showing me love for a long time now. But at One Day Sundays, must have been 3 years ago. I ran into a friend, and then she was like, hey, come here, I want you to meet someone. And I was kind of like, oh fuck, really? All right, like, well, I'm just trying to have fun and don't really want to meet anyone. But then it takes me over, and it's like fucking this like huge Asian dude, Air Max 98s, like whatever. And it's like, oh, this is Marty, he does rap music too. Like you should check him out. You should interview him. And I'm kind of like, yeah, well, whatever. Like I'm not here to work. I'm just having fun. But everything's work, So yeah, shook his hand and had a brief conversation, and then didn't really think much of it. And then a couple of weeks later, I was just on YouTube, and then I was just scrolling, and then this fucking song came up, 111 Doozy. I was like, fuck, it's got a fair amount of views, so clicked on it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty unique for Australia. I guess at that time you still had like Suicide Boys and that sort of stuff coming up, so obviously that was a huge reference point for them. And I was like, fuck, that was the guy that I met, whatever. And then I think from there, I think Marty kind of like, I think we just started speaking on Facebook and stuff like that, and then a couple of weeks or maybe like a couple of months. I don't know the timeline, but like
Yeah.
a bit after that, he hit me up on Facebook chat and was like,
Messenger.
"Hey, yeah, or Facebook Messenger," and he hit me up and he sent me a Dropbox link, and he said, "Hey man, yeah, this is Triple One's new EP. I don't know what you're gonna think of it because it's pretty like, you know, it's not straight hip hop. It's kind of a bit like emo / indie, you know, alternative, whatever." And I'm like, that's cool, you know, like, because I grew up when I was for like all my whole childhood and teenage, I was like into metal and hardcore, you know, and punk. So, yeah, he sent me the, so he sent me the Dropbox, and I was like literally like fucking blown away. Like,
Is this Libertine? Or
yeah, the Libertine. It was the Libertine EP, so it was the first one. And every track on there was crazy. Like, it was on a level of songwriting and stuff that I hadn't heard from Australia, at least. Lakes in particular was crazy for me, and that's kind of like the Cult Triple One track. Yeah, so like I heard Lakes like kind of like a bit before it dropped, and I was like, man, this is actually insane. Like, this is crazy. So I kept tabs on them. You know, at that point I was still a full-time journalist, so I wasn't really thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it in that way. But then after that, like, then I premiered Overflow, which was another one of the big singles. I think that was the top end of 2017. I premiered Overflow, and then I guess from then me and Marty were just chatting here and there, and then I guess it was just kind of like they were starting to pick up a little bit of steam with like Snakebite Betty and stuff like that, which was a bit after that. And then I guess by that point I just didn't really want to be a full-time journalist anymore. I was just kind of like losing my love for it a little bit. So I saw them picking up heat, and I was like, hey, do you guys have, you know, at that point, you know, it's hard to imagine now, but at that point they had no backing from like anyone, you know, because people didn't get it, you know. Like that, they were like, so they had the most plays out of anyone in Australia. Obviously, if you don't count like Hilltop Hoods, Fundamentals, and acts like that, but out of hip hop acts, they had so many listeners on Spotify, but they were all coming from the US and all coming from the UK and Europe. So like no one in the industry was backing them because, you know, they were still playing shows. Like I went to their shows, their early shows at, you know, Good God. They did a show at Cliff Dive, and, you know, there was maybe like 20 people there, you know, and I was like, why the fuck aren't
people latching?
Yeah, obviously, because it's just like, because no one backed them except for, you know, like a very small handful of people, like How. You know, shout out to How, he's been playing their stuff on the Triple J Hip Hop Show for years. But besides that, not really. So I was kind of like, there's something missing here. In my head, I was like, you know, these guys, their songwriting and their live show is crazy. They have hundreds of thousands of listeners, but they're all coming from overseas. How do we connect that to a live show? And how do we make them, you know, Australia's most essential live act? Because everyone knows that's how you make your money as a musician, you know, merch and live shows. So I hit up Marty. I'd never met any of the other guys at this point. I'd probably seen them here and there, but we never had a conversation or whatever. And then we just all went out for milkshakes one day, like all 5 of us, and we sat down, and I said to the guys, you know, I'm not going to fucking promise you anything. I've literally never done this before. I'm telling you I've never done this before, but, you know, like, I've worked in music for a long time, and you know, like, you should just let me help you out. You know, like, I'll help out where I can. You know, don't worry about money or no bullshit like that. You know, obviously this is a trial run for me as well. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Almost a bit of a passion project too.
Yeah, no, literally, because I think in journalism, like what I was talking about before, you have to be passionate about the acts that you're talking about. And Triple One was one that, you know, I did interviews with them, I did premieres and stuff, and I was like, I guess it's like a natural progression to kind of like then say, hey, like, you know, I've supported you for this long, let me support you in a different role. You know, so we got started. The first few months was kind of like very casual, you know, I was just doing what I could here and there. And then when Valentine Kid came out, that would have been top end of 2018, I think. You know, that's when we started getting on the radio, and that's when shit started picking up. And I said, hey, like, let's actually do this.
Lock this down,
Yeah, and then I guess the rest is history. We've just been trying to do that. But, you know, I guess my main goal was for everyone to see that, like, you know, there's no one, in my opinion, that does songwriting and production like Triple One. And I don't think there is anyone that has a better live show. That's my opinion, you know. Like Milan Ring and Chillin' It and stuff like that, and 1-4, they're crazy live acts. I think Triple One is, you know, one of the best live acts in the country.
I credit that to the different moods that they tap into. Whereas it's not like Autumn Collection was an encore, like, and that shit was completely different to what Doozy or Show Off would do. And being able to give and take and pull and makes that show so dynamic and so awesome.
Yeah, and that also lends itself to who comes to our shows. You know, like you go to a 111 show, you'll literally find every single type of person there. You know, there's like older hip hop guys, and then there's younger hip hop fans, and then there's like goths, you know, emos, punks, like alternative guys, and that just makes for like a really like amazing like atmosphere at the shows. Yeah. You know, like when we went to the UK, it was like everyone there was just like a goth.
Yeah,
yeah, and it was mad. But you know, like in Australia at least, we have like, you know, like a hugely like diverse crowd, and it's like I don't think you can really find it with any other acts in Australia, a crowd that diverse. Yeah. You know, like before we come on, we play. You know, the DJ will usually spin like, you know, 1/4 back to back with Rage Against the Machine, back to back with Slayer. You know, like it just makes no sense, but it does. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about, you know, keeping it mixed, and we like to do that in our music and our live shows and everything as well.
And like Triple One are bridging the gap between Triple J and Sydney rap. That circle really like better than almost anyone. So you've got the Triple J audience. Like, at Listen Out or at. At Fools, but at the same time, like Marrickville Bolo, where there's like hardcore Aussie hip hop heads who are like
Well, you can definitely tell because, you know, when we play a Falls festival or we play a Listen Out, it's definitely, you know, Butter, Show Off, and Tarlo, which will get the hugest reactions, and then we play a headline show, and then, you know, Overflow and Autumn Collection will be the biggest tracks. Yeah, so I think it's good just to have different audiences and different streams and stuff like that. But, you know, Triple J, props to them because they definitely. You know how, obviously I said before, how has been, you know, like, I guess he's been a big influence on me, like personally, as like a journalist. I guess he's a journalist as well. Yeah, mentor type
Someone
dude.
Look up to.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, like him doing, and Shantan, so shout out to Shantan and Ebony as well, doing Bars of Steel and stuff like that now, and then, you know, obviously all the underground ciphers and all the grime ciphers that How had on Triple J, which was like craziest, like, you know, Alex Jones back to back with Fracture, back to back with Wombat, back to back with Shadow, back to back with Nerve, you know, just like all that stuff it's definitely helping to bridge, you know the gap. And some purists from the underground or fucking whatever might be like, oh no, that's like whack. At the end of the day, it's just like, you know, like it's a platform, you know what I mean? And Triple J, I think they're doing really good things right now, like with all the stuff they're doing.
I think they've changed so much in the past 2 years in terms of their appreciation for hip hop and how to handle hip hop and how to promote rap.
Because it's getting too hard to deny. It's the biggest genre in the world. You know, it is like officially of like, you know, like fucking 2 years ago or 1 year ago, I think it was like that, you know, hip hop surpassed rock as the biggest genre in the United States. Yeah. And obviously us being so indebted to the States, it's like that. I think people are feeling that trickle down, and that gap is closing. And, you know, shout out to, you know, like, you know, you have guys like, you know, Manu and Kid Leroy and stuff like that. They're definitely showing that, you know, Australian artists doesn't have to sound like what you think it sounds like. You know, like there's still like a lot of people who are like, you know, as soon as they hear, oh, Australian hip hop, they're like, oh no, I don't want it. Yeah. But it's like, do you get that? Like, it's almost frustrating at this point because it's like Sampa the Great, you know, she. I'm not sure where she's originally from, but she was based in Melbourne and alongside, you know, Remy and that sort of movement. Yeah. And, you know, I would never in a million years say that they're Aussie hip hop. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't put that term on them, you know, but they're definitely based in Australia and they make hip hop. Yeah. But it's not what people think it is, you know. And, you know, shout out to, you know, like Remy, Sampa, you know, that's obviously, you know, like one sound. And then you have like, you know, Manu and Leroy doing Rolling Loud in the US, and then, you know, obviously like us and Chillina, and we're doing that thing. So it's like, there's a lot of flavors in here, and I don't think it's so confined, and that's why Triple J's kind of like taken a more proactive step, I guess, in like championing hip hop and stuff like that.
I feel like a couple of years ago, or maybe like halfway through last year, I had people would come up and be like, oh, I like Triple One, or like, I don't listen to Australian hip hop, but I'll listen to Triple One. Yeah. But I listen to Chillin' It. But then people were just like so associated, like, that term Oz hip hop has changed so much in the past 6 months, I think.
Exactly.
People aren't ashamed to say that they like Aussie hip hop anymore because of how good it is and
but
how
it's
ingrained it is.
Yeah, but it's like also like Chillin' It, you know, got on stage with Fundamentals. You know, like we used to share a studio with Horror Show. You know, like it's all love. Like, you know, there's it's like it's. But even like Oz hip hop, like what people consider Oz hip hop, is still mad. Like,
exactly.
You know, like Horror Show is like. For me, like Grey Space and stuff like that is some of the craziest, most like production-wise and storytelling-wise, some of the craziest music I've ever heard from Australia. Yeah. And like, I guess people consider Horror Show, you know, quotation marks, Oz hip hop, still fucking mad.
Yeah, it is. And like,
you know what I mean? Like,
even and all those guys have, like, you list, like, there are indie artists or like folk artists that quote Horror Show and all those people
dude,
for their quality of songwriting as some of their biggest influences.
Yeah, I think
it's undeniable.
Yeah, I think Spit Syndicate, I did a little thing with them a while ago, and they were saying, you know, Horror Show are the most tattooed lyrics artists in Australia.
Yeah,
because their storytelling is crazy, you know, and the production is crazy too. So
yeah,
I don't buy into all that negativity behind. Yeah, you know, because, you know, like I said, some of my favorite Australian records of, a lot of them are from, you know, the past 3 or 4 years, but a lot of them are like, you know, like Horror Show and even going back further than that, you know, Lyrical Commission and stuff like that. So like, yeah, there's room for all of it. There's no need to, for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. So how can we as media personalities, I don't want to say journalists, help not educate, but you know what I mean, like help keep pushing that positivity narrative, like just using our platforms for good and just trying to tell these stories as best as possible.
Yes.
Or should we take a more extreme approach of saying, no, don't fucking do it, you know what I mean, and actually call these people out? Or do you think take a more...
People can sniff those people.
Yeah.
People can tell when people are being disingenuous. And it goes back to what I was saying before. It depends on what you believe the role of a journalist to be. You know, for a lot of people, especially ones that work at bigger outlets, their job is to get clicks. Their job is to get ad revenue. That's their role. That is why they're a journalist. Yeah. Because if they don't, they're going to get fired. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like me personally, my role as a journalist has always been, like I was saying before, you are a vehicle between the audience and an artist. You're supposed to tell their story as honestly and as truthfully and as engagingly as you can. Yeah. There's nothing more to it than that. My belief has always been like, if you do that, you're gonna go a lot further in building an audience and building a community around you. And that's what we're trying to do with Filter. You know what I mean? Like, we came out with the 1-4 story. A lot of people had no idea who the fuck 1-4 were, you know, like, and we, you know, like, they had to trust us that we weren't going to go out there and be like, these guys are fucking, and hype it up and like, nah, which is happening a lot with 1-4 right now, you know, even in the newspapers and stuff, you know, like we set out there to be like, hey, this is an artist who's making noise. Yeah. We've never heard anything like it in Australia. People need to know who these guys are. Yeah. That's the line of thought. You know what I mean? It's not like, how do I make this title crazy so people are going to click it? Yeah. You know, how do I... No. I'm not about it.
That 1-4 situation is so fucked as well right now.
Yeah. I mean, props to 1-4. You know, that... Again, to get people to take hip hop from this country seriously, and especially people who are still using that Aus hip hop thing in a negative way or whatever, like, they're probably going to be the ones to do it. You know, like, at least in my time, I've never seen anything really like it or as hyped as it. So yeah, like, hopefully, you know, the legality situation doesn't get in the way of what they're trying to do, and, you know, props to 1-4. Yeah,
so sick.
Yeah, they're doing crazy.
And like, I've only had dipped my toes into this like scene for like the past 6 months or so. So I was gonna ask, like, is this the most excited you've seen the Australian public about a hip hop act, do you think, in terms of just widespread, like,
1-4?
Everyone knows, 1-4.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing about 1-4 is that, like, why they're so attractive is that, like, well, one, drill music hasn't really been done in this country, at least on a huge scale. I mean, Australia's always had, not always, but for a long time we've had grime. You know, like I was talking about those guys before, Fracture, Smash Brothers, Alex Jones and stuff like that. So we used to, like, you know, we're used to UK stuff. You know what I mean? And especially since the grime explosion a couple of years ago, like Stormzy and Skepta and all that shit. People are used to grime now, but drill, I think, is like, it's related, but it's also like, it's just so brazen that it's just like, even if you don't like the music, you just have to watch a 1-4 video and be like, what the fuck is this? You know, there's 100 cunts in like balaclava wearing all black Under Armour outfits. And it's just like, even if you don't like the music, it's kind of like, so wow, like it's just so like in your face, and it's just like impossible to ignore, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like that's the reason why people are getting so like hyped up about it. And the other thing that 1-4 are really good at is they're really good at delivering instantly quotable, like, lines.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
They're just good songs. The songs are great. Like,
yeah, well, the thing that not only are the songs good, they're not hook reliant to me. Like, the message didn't have a hook, but there were moments in that song, you know that peaked harder than a hook. You know, like, you know, the retaliation is a must. You know, like that, like the line about Chingy. You know, like, just the lines were memorable and they were instantly quotable. And I think those dudes obviously have a rep outside of music, so it's like it just feels like, you know, genuine, and it feels like it's just like so crazy.
Yeah. So sick. Like my friends won't listen. Like, I have friends that don't listen to any hip hop.
Yeah.
And they'll come up to me because, like, apparently I have some say or whatever. I'm like, what's going on with 1-4? It's like, bro, I don't know. But the fact that they know what 1-4 is, and the two to have 1-4, and just like how culturally, like how just splitting it in half is so sick. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, people can't. You can't really ignore it. It's just so, like, you know, and their videos, it's like, it's not like, you know, like there's a narrative to the video.
No.
It's just like
just chaos.
50 dudes like on motorbikes in Balaclava. It's like, that's just cool to look at. You know what I mean? And HP Boys, like, shout out to HP Boys, you know, like in Melbourne too, like all that shit. So yeah, funny thing you mentioned Batuta though, like Batuta kind of big like gutter rap fans and underground hip hop fans as well. Like, we've been in Batuta a couple of times, and, you know, like, so is Enter and stuff like that. And obviously Cursor was on the Batuta podcast as well. So Batuta, even though it's like a satirical thing, like, shout out to them for, like, you know, supporting the local hip hop scene where they can.
I feel like people underestimate how impactful Batuta is in terms of, like, what a media outlet is. They're probably the biggest, like, even though they're satire, they're the biggest.
No, they are
media outlet for youth in Sydney. Well,
also, like, it's like, people underestimate humor as a vehicle to kind of get a message through to people, which is what I think Batuta does really well. You know, you shouldn't, like, especially Australians, you know, we love to take the piss out of ourselves or whatever, and you know, humor is such like a big thing in, like, just banter, you know, whatever. Like, so I feel like people definitely underestimate Batuta and how much it actually makes you think. Yeah, they're smart dudes. They know what they're doing.
And it's like, some of it's like super politically charged as well. Like,
they're
so self-aware. And
that's why it's so funny. Yeah, because they do, like, they're like intensely political, like, and you know, just like, for them to go out there and like start doing 1-4 and 111 articles is like ridiculous. It's just so hilarious. Sick.
Fucking Batuta.
Yeah, they're good dudes.
They're good.
Shout out to Batuta.
Shit, where do I even go? Let's talk about a bit more logistical stuff. How do you end up at a place like MTV or presenting on MTV?
Yeah, I think it was just
a natural.
But I guess, like, so the show is like, we work with Call and Response. Call and Response. The dudes there, they look after, you know, like a couple of acts like Camouflage Rose and a few other acts and stuff like that. I guess he had heard of me through one way or another. Like, again, there's not that many people that are actively working in hip hop in this country, in a media space at least. So I guess, like, people he had just heard from me from around, and he was like, hey, do you want to do MTV? And I was like, sure. Like, you know, like, who doesn't? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and, you know, MTV is one outlet that you can trust, where video stuff and the production and stuff is all going to be like
sick.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people try and do video, but because of financial restraints or whatever, it's not really edited or done properly. But no, but you know what I mean? To actually do a program and actually have it televised and have it, you know, air at the right time, you know, it's really hard, and not that many people have the money to do it. But, you know, fortunately, MTV is, you know, obviously a huge brand. I was lucky enough for them to have me on, so shout out to MTV, because, you know, for them to be paying this much attention to the local hip hop scene is also great. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, like, every week I just, like, have a little script, check out what's going on, write the script, read it off a screen. But outside of that, it's more just like, you know, people send me clips and it's good for me to kind of be across everything, you know what I mean? Like, we play everything on there, so it's not just like, you know, I think people, when they hear the name MTV, they might be like, oh, they're gonna just play some fucking commercial bullshit. We've played Fracture on there, we've played Dime on there, we've played, you know, like 1-4 in the early days. We've played like everything on there, you know what I mean? It's not just one sound, and it's not just anything. The goal of the show is to have an accurate snapshot of everything that's going on, and I think we've kind of done that, or we are doing that. You know what I mean? So, like, we've played everything on there, like, you know, Kobe D, like, you know, Briggs, and, you know, Hilltops. We've played everything.
Big shout out Kobe D. I love.
He's
crazy.
Kobe D is a great guy. and a great boxer as well. But funny story, it was actually not funny at all, but like he grew up like 30 seconds away from me. So we're from the same suburb, the same, South Maroubra, bordering Matraville, that area. So like, I've always got a little soft spot for Kobe D. Not that I need to, because he's fucking mad.
He spits as well.
Yeah, he's crazy. I heard him on Right Now, and Shantan, who works at Triple J and manages him. He kind of passed some stuff along, and then he's been going really good so far. Like this year, he had This Life, that track, and then he had that Jody track, which blew up on Triple J, and then he opened for Dave. So yeah, Kobe's having a really good year, and he's a really good dude as well. Young guy with like a lot of talent, and he's got a lot to say. And he communicates it really well through music.
A really smart way. Yeah. Who else do you I don't want to say like who else do you back, or who else do you not support, but you know what I mean? Like who else do you see as like you've listened to their stuff and think, holy shit, like we might have one here?
HP Boys from Melbourne, definitely. They've released 2 singles. Their first single is like fucking blew up. Their second one is going crazy right now. Engineers. So check out HP Boys. They're from Melbourne. There's a girl called Glow. She opened for Milan Ring earlier this year. I don't think she has any music release yet, but she's dope. Milan Ring herself. Mm-hmm. She's probably the best live act in the country. Tied with Triple One, obviously. No, but her live show is insane, and I think her songwriting is great. Kobe. That's probably the ones that are like, I feel like are going to take this shit the furthest. Obviously Chillin' It, obviously 1-4.
Yeah. Other than the obvious.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. That'd be good for now if you don't.
That's fine. If you're still,
you haven't heard of them, then check them out because they're all good. Yeah.
Let's talk about like, I think you're super interesting in the way that you're a media personality, but you're your own brand. Like 24karatkev is a brand. Yeah. Do you think that that's what like budding journalists, media personalities should be like trying to do in order for them to get their name out there? Do you think that's the way forward for what it means to be a journalist in 2019?
I mean, I don't think it's so much about having a brand as just having a voice. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do journalism at uni. I did one subject of journalism and I hated it. Because when I was there, they were training me to write as if I was writing for a newspaper. Which, fair enough. That's, they're not going to have a fucking course to train you on how to be a music blogger. You know what I mean? So, but they were training me on how to be a journalist for a newspaper. So they were like, always remain impartial when you're writing the story. Like be as succinct as possible. Which is stuff that you have to be a newspaper because you got to think about newspaper being a physical thing. Like they only have so much room for an article. Sometimes it's this big. You got to be really concise about what you're saying. And obviously, if it's a big outlet, they don't want to be seen as favoring anyone. So they're like, remain, impartial. And I was kind of like, if I want to do music journalism, which is actually what I want to do, fuck that. Like, I'm going to literally obviously have an opinion. I'm obviously going to be opinionated and tell stupid anecdotes and stuff like that. So when I first started doing journalism, I was a fucking little smartass, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I was doing dumb shit. I was just like wilding out, like taking shots at people. And I'm not saying people should do that. No. I had to get it out of my system. But what I'm saying is that, have your voice, like have little it's the same as if you're making music, like the same way rappers have certain punchlines or certain ad-libs that they put in every song. As a journalist, you should have like, a certain style or maybe even a certain like in-joke type thing that you might put in each article because people read that and people read the article for you. They don't care what the fuck you're reviewing, but because you're entertaining them, they're looking for articles by you. They're not looking for what you're actually writing about. You know what I mean? So like, this sounds really weird, but like, the only TV show I really watch is My Kitchen Rules. And I fucking love My Kitchen Rules. So like in all my early articles, like I used to just like put in like little in-jokes about My Kitchen Rules. Just like somehow I just like segue and slip that in there. And that became like my thing. And then publicists would kind of come up to me and be like, oh yeah, you fucking watching My Kitchen Rules tonight, right? So it became like a thing. And that's like obviously a stupid example, but it's like, have like little quirks and little stylistic differences from other writers. Develop your own personality because that's what people are going to be attracted to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you should go out there and force yourself to be some overinflated brand, so to speak, but definitely have a personality and find your niche, like my niche was, emerging hip hop. That was my niche. Like, and that's still my niche, I guess. But like when I was first starting to write, like I was doing stuff with my first like hip hop acts I ever really worked with was, you know, your One Day Cruise and Tucker from Fundamentals and stuff like that. Those are like the first dudes I met. And then Forte, who we spoke about before, I met Forte, and then like, you know, I did an interview with Forte, and then I started going more underground, and, you know, I was doing interviews with like, you know, Husky and you know, Lil Snow and dudes like that. So yeah, that became my lane, and then people started approaching me being like, hey, I got a new record out or whatever, and then that was my niche. And because I guess over the years people could trust that I wasn't gonna make them look like a dickhead, you know, like a lot of other journalists probably would. So yeah, it's just about, you know, like definitely having a voice and having a niche. That's probably the two things that I would say, and that eventually evolves into a brand. You know what I mean? Like exactly. I guess my brand personally was because like I was into stuff outside of music, was definitely like the way I dress or whatever. Like that became part of my brand, and then I started working with Nike and started working with like you know because I used to work a half sleeve, so. Which for people that don't know was a streetwear boutique in Sydney for like a long time. So yeah, streetwear and sneakers then became my thing just because of the way I looked and whatever. And that became part of my brand. And then like, you know, obviously sneakers and hip hop, that's tied together. And, you know, it's not really something that you force. It's just that, you hone your craft, hone your voice, and then that becomes your brand.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm not telling anyone to fucking go out there and dress a certain way.
No,
No, just do whatever feels right to you. That was what it was for me, because like that's just how I dressed, and then people that are into hip hop like the way that I dressed, and you know that's just a coincidence. But your brand could be anything, you know, like Chillinet's brand is fucking smoking weed.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to smoke weed, then so be it. I don't smoke weed. I don't do any of that shit. So it's just like if I wouldn't go out there and start fucking punching bongs because I'm like, oh, this would be a crazy thing to inflate my brand if I just started smoking bongs on Instagram Live. It's just not me, so I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and one thing that you sort of touched on, build trust in the community.
Yeah.
Because as a journalist or a media personality, if you can build trust with a group of artists or a certain amount of artists, that goes such a long way, because when they have a new single and they have a new film clip, they're going to look for media outlets or media people that are going to portray their stories best. And I think that's so important and so slept on as well. Yeah,
not just artists, but like publicists as well. So like, you know, I have like, you know, my favorite publicists that like, whenever something comes out, they definitely hit me up and they give me passes to the shows and access to the artists. Like, I would argue that, you know, the publicists, promoters, and label dudes, like, they're just as important as forging. Yeah. Obviously, in the early stages of an underground artist, it's like they don't really have that team, so you build that relationship directly. But, you know, with bigger artists, especially like, you know, festivals or big events, like, it's really good to forge those relationships with publicists, labels, and record people. Because, you know, like FOMO Festival is a festival that I've worked not directly with, but, you know, I've attended, and then we always do interviews there, and that's because they've known me since, you know, they started. Yeah. So that was like a really important relationship to build, because, you know, then we started interviewing like, you know, Designer and like, you know, like Metro Boomin and stuff like that. Like, actually it wasn't Metro Boomin. Well, it was definitely Designer. Yeah. But so like I guess if you're a journalist, like that trust goes a long way. And then like, you know, I've worked, you know, like on copy, like as a copywriter or doing press releases for, you know, every major record label, and then from there it's kind of like building trust, and then that's how you grow kind of like your relationships and your money, which is also important. Like let's not lie, like money is important. Yeah. So
and getting any paid work in that realm.
Exactly. It's hard. Yeah. And the other thing I got to say is that like I say this all the time, but I really have to stress it like a lot. When you're building those relationships, whether it be with an artist or a publicist, a booker, a promoter, a label, don't forget how important it is to do that shit in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, I see a lot of rappers or artists, and they're like, man, I've been trying to get in touch, like, this is so long, I'm not getting anywhere, like, what's going on? I'm like, okay, what have you done? You know, I emailed this person, I emailed that person, I DM'd this person, I DM'd that person. I'm like, I'm not even like fucking that busy comparatively to other people in the music industry, because most people in music work like a lot, you know, they work a lot. I don't even work that much compared to a lot of other people, and I miss emails, you know, like I fucking miss messages from my own mum, you know, like just because I forget, and I'm here and I'm there and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. If you really want to fucking, you know, like build that relationship, if you want to build that relationship and you want to get on that same level as an artist or someone who works in the music industry, literally just go to a show or go to a party and, you know, don't do it in a forceful way. Don't be weird and don't interrupt anyone's conversations or anything. But, you know, just say like, hey, like, you know, I've seen you around. Like, here's my stuff. Like, I was just wondering if I could get some advice on this or whether I can hit you up or I'll give you a call later. Like,
yeah.
And, you know, people appreciate that a lot more. Yeah. And like me personally, like if someone emails me, I don't know who the fuck that is. I just see a name and I'm like, all right, I don't know that name. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got a million other emails. Like, I'm obviously going to reply to people that I actually know and I've actually met. When you put a face to the name and you've spoken to that person, you're like, oh, hey, yeah, that person was kind of cool. That's, like, how you build a relationship. And I think because everything's so digital now, people are forgetting that. Yeah. And they just rely solely on, like, DMs and stuff. And it just... A lot of the time, that's just not how it works. A lot of the time, it does work, you know? But a lot of the time, it doesn't. And people get disheartened when it doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, you just need to go to shows, go to parties, you know... You might feel bad if you're a recording artist and you're out clubbing and stuff, but if you're out clubbing and you're talking to people who can actually, you know, you can connect with, you can build with, they can help you realize your vision, that's work. Yeah. You know, being an artist is not just sitting in the studio for 20 hours a day and perfecting one fucking loop. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's obviously an important part of it, but going out there and meeting people, that's a huge part of being an artist, which people just forget. And like that, like going back to 111, like that's how the whole shit with 111 started. Yeah. I was at a party and then someone introduced me to Martin, you know, and someone was like, hey, here's Martin, like he raps. And I was like, cool, whatever. Didn't think of anything of it at the time, obviously. But now looking back on it now, that was, you know, going back to what we were saying about One Day Sundays being a really important hub for people that are working in hip hop to kind of connect.
Yeah. And it's a lot harder, like being cheeky as well. Yeah. People are much happier to say no over email or DM or ignore it than in real life. Like if I walk up to an artist, whatever, that I've known for a while, I'm like, oh, we should do an interview. Yeah. The likeliness of them saying no in real life relative to me hitting them up on an email is so... Well, I think that because of just like human interaction. Yeah.
It's just like energy. Like if you you know, meet someone and, you know, the vibe is good and you guys like have a laugh and the conversation is great, you're like, fuck, that dude was actually kind of cool. I'm going to check out today's music. If you just email someone, like, unless you do some crazy email, like, crazy fucking thing with, like, pictures and gifs, like, which no one does. Yeah. You know, the emails I usually go to, like, hi, hey, here's that fucking press release I wrote. Like, just, do you want to do this? And it's kind of like, well, kind of not really. Like, you didn't convince me that much. You know what I mean? Like, not that, you know, like, they should have to, like, convince you, but it's just hard to convey that, I feel, over email a lot of the time, unless you're a really established artist and you're like, this person has 10 million streams and, you know, which most people don't have. So... Yeah, for me, it's like, I mean, artists ask me that question all the time, and I tell them time and time and again, you really got to get out of the house, get out of the studio, you know, like, I'm not saying go out there and get pierced and, like, you know, have an all-nighter and then just don't record for the next 5 days, but it's like, you know, if you're not feeling like partying, you just go out to an event for 1 or 2 hours, you never know who you're going to run into, like, honestly, and that's how all my jobs in journalism started too, because I was, like, out at parties, and then, so I used to work at Life Without Andy. And Mitch from Life Without Andy used to just take photos at every party. He would go like 4 club nights a night, you know, like crazy, like, you know, from the Cross down William Street, Oxford Street. This was pre-lockout, obviously. And I was just, at that time, I was just getting started in journalism and you know, I was getting invited to parties, and it was obviously I've never experienced before, so it was cool, like, to go to, you know, Adidas parties or Nike parties, and, you know, and he would always be photographing them, and then, we built the rapport that way. Like, you know, he would take photos of me and I'd always be wearing dumb shit. So he'd be like, hey man, like your jacket or whatever. And I'd be like, oh yeah, mad cunt, whatever. We kept in touch. And a couple years later, he hit me up and said, hey, like Life Without Andy, we're going beyond photography and we're going into like editorial now. Like, do you want to kind of like maybe like do some stuff for us? And I was like, yeah, of course. You know, and how that started was someone taking my photo at a party. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously, again, you look back on it and you're like, at the time, that was nothing. Yeah. But that's how it starts. You know, people forget that that's how everything starts.
Yeah, I'll reflect that on my own journey as well. I just used to hang out here, whatever, listen to 111, or just to nod my head saying, bro, like, love your shit, whatever. And then when it was, like, structurally put together, it's like, oh, you're going to meet them in the studio at this time. Yeah. Marty opened the door and he's like, oh, fuck, not you again. Yeah. And then I walked up, and it's just small shit like that, and it makes such a big difference, and rapport is so important.
Yeah, it's especially true in places like this, like, since the Gladdy, like, reopened, like Paddy, who used to own this pub, like, since he reopened it, it was very much a hangout for, you know, guys like DMAs and guys like the One Day Crew. So it was just like, you know, it was really important to come here, and you never knew who you're going to run into. You know what I mean? Cutlet, bro. Billy Gunn's just interrupted the podcast with a lamb cutlet. Fuckwit.
No cutlets.
But But yeah, places like this, like, this was where I first met, DMAs and a lot of the One Day guys, their office used to be upstairs where our studio is now. They used to be here. So, a lot of conversations also were, of mine personally too, were like forged here. And you come here on like any
Friday night.
Yeah, any Friday or Saturday night, you're going to see someone who you probably have like, something in common with or a shared love of music or whatever, and the events they have up in Good Space as well. So Chris Lutfi, who does Filter with me, he kind of like looks after Good Space and stuff like that. When all my friends were coming up as artists, he was the one putting on shows. And that's how I met Chris, because, my friends were artists. I would come to their shows, and then Chris was looking after the gallery. And then me and Chris, again, that's like another example. So I'm giving you 3 examples of like how just like small interactions can just flourish into like really important things. And like, I feel like people literally just don't do enough of it today. And obviously it's not all their fault, because Sydney's obviously very different to when I started. There was no lockouts. There was hip hop parties on like all the time, Halfway Crooks, Monday, Sundays, whatever. Obviously we don't have that now, but there's still, I'm sure like there's still places that interest you that you could go out every weekend, So artists, don't spend so much time in the studio, don't be so hard on yourself. Go out and have some fun and shit. And that's really important. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
What do you reckon? Well, now direct it to like, say for instance, you were talking to 16-year-old me that was like, fuck, I want to get involved in music. I want to write about music. Yeah. What was one mistake do you think you made that you'd wish you could like tell your former self, or just a piece of advice for like a 16-year-old that's trying to find their feet? Same sort of thing, do you think? Just getting out there, talking to people.
No, I've always done that. So like, that wouldn't be something that would... Oh, you mean that I did wrong? Or
just a general piece of advice to a young person that's just trying to get involved from a journalism point of view.
Don't talk so much shit. Like, I talked a lot of shit. And it came back to bite me as well. Yeah. So like, it's obviously funny if it's just banter and like, if you're reviewing something you hate it, then you hate it. You can't force yourself to like something, but at the same time, it's kind of like, just know how small the music industry is. Just know how small the music industry is, and if you go out there and look for drama, it's probably going to find you. Yeah. If you go out there and you look for drama and you look for trouble and you're being a little smartass, sometimes it's going to find you. Not directly, but it's going to come back. Yeah. Don't worry about that.
And closing remarks. I started this podcast, completely independent, whatever. Or what advice would you give me going forward with this platform? Other than this whole podcast, which is pretty much just a lesson to anyone just learning.
I would probably say maybe just don't be afraid to go for bigger artists. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, that's another thing that I feel people are kind of like a bit hesitant about. They feel weird about approaching people. They're like, oh no, like they might just think I'm a weird cunt or whatever. But it's like, nah, like you just go out there and ask. Like literally, that's something that I would have told myself. Don't be afraid to ask. Because like a lot of stuff I feel like I've missed out on. I just couldn't be bothered asking, or I was too scared, or like, I just thought, I'm just like a fucking independent music blogger. Like, why would that person want to? But like, sometimes they just want to. Yeah. You know what I mean? And especially if you have like an engaging like angle or or you have a reputation as like a great interviewer or something like that, you never know who's going to say yes. You know what I mean? Like a lot of interviews like I did, like were just like so surprised. Like I fucking interviewed Kim Kardashian at one point. You know what I mean? And like we sent in a request as a joke. We were like we weren't small, but we were like a independent music blog. Like this would have been like 4 or 5 years ago. It was on the Yeezus tour, I believe. The Yeezus tour, it was. Kim came out with Kanye. We got a press release about it, and we wrote back being like, yeah, we would love to interview Kim Kardashian, ha ha ha. We all had a laugh about it, and the next day they're like, yeah, sweet. You know what I mean? So it's like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me right now? You're literally going to trust me interviewing Kim Kardashian. You know what I mean? Like that was, especially 4 years ago when I was still a fucking smartass. You know what I mean? Luckily I wasn't a smartass then, because she had a lot of security. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, don't be afraid to ask for stuff, and don't be afraid to shoot for bigger artists and stuff like that, because you never know what's going to come of it. Yeah.
Final thing as well, you just got to neck nominate someone to come on, pretty much. Just call someone out. Or who do you think has a story to tell that should be told?
Raj Mahal, probably. He's an interesting one because, I think coming from hip hop from Australia, everyone wants to be like, I want to be big in the States. Like that's just what we've been trained to think for whatever reason. He's an interesting one because he was in the States. He's from Boston. He came to Australia actually because his producer lives here, and now he's doing a thing in Sydney. So it's like almost like a role reversal. So that could be pretty interesting. Fuck, who else is interesting?
Is anyone else interesting?
You mean in hip hop or just like?
Or just in music?
In music.
Who do you think would have a good conversation about music?
Dave Hume. I'm gonna nominate Dave Hume. Yeah, he works at the Orchard. He manages a few acts and shit, but he's just got great conversation.
Done.
Yeah, he's a weirdo. Yeah.
24karatkev, Parry Talks.
Yeah.
Fuck,
Thanks for having me.
Going on, bro.
Yeah,
Appreciate it
mad
heaps.